5 seconds.
Hi, race fans. Steve Pollock here for Saddle Up. And we've got some nice racing again this weekend, Jay. We've got some good racing over at Saratoga, big race at Del Mar. We're going to take a look at a race at Woodbine, and we'll discuss a few races that we went over last week. But boy, the Del Mar Oaks, always a big race. They go a mile and an eighth coming out of the chute. And turf course been very fair at Del Mar, and we've had some prices win there. Unfortunately, Jade, last week, our top selection, you and I both agreed on a selection in the big race last week. And man, oh man, the horse opened up very, very short. Not totally surprised that that horse went to the lead, Jay. I just want your take on that. Welcome to the show, Jay, and your take on our horse that went to the lead and last week's Yellow Ribbon Heredia.
Great to see you here, Steve, again on Horse Racing World Channel. And yeah, there's some terrific races going on that we're going to talk about. But yeah, Steve, I was really surprised at the running style with Heredia. I never expected her to bolt to the lead like that in a million years because the two races in America, she came from off the pace. So that was a big surprise to me, and it turned out to be the decisive move. And Steve, I think we've got to stop agreeing on horses because we just killed the price, man.
Now, I don't know if it was us. It's that would be my ego would. I don't know if it can get any bigger than it already is, Jay. But I mean, honestly, the way you got to play Del Mar is you just got to be patient and you just got to wait. You got to get the price that you want, and if you don't, you go to the next thing. Maybe the pick three was playable around there, but that is a big thing. I want to start there, Jay, because I think that what I'm seeing is this with now with these bettors that are betting, the computer bettors, the CAWs. I have seen another week of data, and basically, folks, if you're out there and you're betting and you're really trying to do well, and you're trying to do well in the win pool, you really have to wait until 2 minutes. Wait for that 2 minute. Wait for that change. There was a horse today named Piper's Causeway, and I did not have the horse marked for those of you who called or got my picks today. I didn't even have the horse in my first four, to be honest with you. But I thought it was a competitive race, and I thought this was a horse that had a chance. And I would have said that the horse was somewhere 10, 12 to 1 in my mind. And Jay, the horse was 31 to 1 with 2.5 minutes to go, looked very good on the track. And at 31 to 1, if this horse can win 1 out of 12 times, 1 out of 10 times for me, I'm going to make a killing in the long run. And that's the way I play. So I'm waiting because I know what's going to happen. 2 minute warning came in. The horse went to 8 and actually went from 31 to 8. So all the computer money came in. It's almost like it's happening automatically on anything that's huge overlay like that. At 8 to 1, I wasn't interested, Jay. I had this horse winning 1 out of 10 times at 8 to 1 in the long run off my math. I'm going to lose. So
Yeah.
it's not a horse that I want to play. And again, I didn't even key him in my picks. As it turned out, a different 10 to 1 shot won the race, and there was a price horse that won the race. But this horse really didn't fire. But that is now the way the win pool is there, folks. You have to wait for 2 minutes, see what the price is, Jay, and then reevaluate after that 2 minutes comes in. Give it a good wait till that next clip comes in, and then you'll know, hey, there's no more computer wagering on here. And now is this the price that I want on the horse?
Yeah, you've got to get your value because, like you say, if you go chasing these, middle price horses that aren't really going to pay what you need them to over the course of time, you're going to lose money. So, Steve, you did the right thing stepping out, whether the horse won or not. You did the right thing by staying out and not getting your price.
Yeah, and again, this wasn't even a horse that I really had. I had four horses that I had over this on my sheet, and the horse that I wanted to play in the race actually ran second, a horse that was bet down. But that doesn't, I guess that really doesn't matter. What matters is like, well, so whoa, this horse really shouldn't be this price. And then at 2 minutes, he wasn't that price. And then it became, oh, I don't really like this horse at 10 to 1. And believe it or not, 10 to 1 on that horse to me was just an ordinary, below average, you're going to lose in the long run play versus 30 to 1. And I know that's hard for a lot of people to see, but over the course of a year, 40 years of playing horses, that was a horse that I really thought was great value at that price, but then he wasn't that price. And that's what's happening a lot. And we just have to readjust. And I think that's the adjustment that the folks can make.
For sure. And at least we've got that 2 minute window now, which we didn't have before.
I like it, Jay. I really do. And I think in the long run, it'll be a good thing. I'm not seeing the intense bet downs at Saratoga. I've been playing Saratoga, Monmouth, and Del Mar, and I'm just seeing a lot more fair play at those two tracks. And I'm just seeing a lot of bet downs at Del Mar right now. And if that's the case, I'm going to be patient and I'm going to ride it out. And that's kind of what I've had to do. There just hasn't been much for my liking at Del Mar as much as normal. And I'm hoping that that'll change. But now at least I can make an educated decision instead of putting something in at 7 and just hoping that they'll stay there and having them go to 3.
Excellent. Yeah.
All right,
Glad we have it.
Jay, let's get to some good races here.
Yeah.
I want to talk about the race at Saratoga first, the Alabama, and then we're going to talk a little bit about the race at Woodbine. Those are two good races for this week. Don't fall asleep on Woodbine. Remember last year, the Woodbine, this race actually, the Breeders' Cup Filly Mare Turf, the winner came out of the race that they're going to run, and we're going to talk about here in a little bit. So don't sleep on the Woodbine horses. They've been actually hitting the board. They really, for those of you that follow the few years before that, this same trainer, Moira, was the name of the winner last year. And this trainer had been doing well. And again, we'll get to that because we're going to go over that race. But again, don't fall asleep. Those of you who are working on the Breeders' Cup, and Jay, we're doing that right now, you and I, don't fall asleep on those races. And again, we'll get to that Woodbine race. But I want to start out with the Alabama. This is a 1.25 mile race, and this is not the race that we're going to go horse by horse on. Jay, 1.25 miles, kind of unusual for 3-year-old fillies. Maybe this is the only race left that we see this crazy distance at. I'm hoping the weather's good. It was supposed to be okay today, and they were really sloppy there. It's supposed to be nice, clear weather there at Saratoga. Any thoughts on the Alabama Saturday race 10 at Saratoga?
Yeah, so there used to be another one. Remember the Coaching Club American Oaks also used to be 1.25 miles, and then for whatever reason they decided to shorten it up. That seems to be the trend. I'm not sure it's the best trend, but yeah, it's a competitive field, and there are three distinct favorites in here. You've got Good Cheer, who was the undefeated Amazon that won the Kentucky Oaks, and then got a trip in the slop, which she had handled very well before. I mean, handled that as an allowance first time out of the maiden ranks, won by 17 lengths. So it's not like she doesn't like slop, but just completely just got taken out of a race. I mean, she brushed the gate at the start, and that certainly could have been the blame. Yeah, it's also possible she's starting to go the wrong way. So we'll find out today. That gate incident could have done it. Lucara was the one that took advantage and beat her handily. Lucara's had a solid career, 5 for 11, and she could be the new queen of the heap if that really is the new Good Cheer. I don't think it is. I think she's still a lot better than that. And of course, you've got Nitrogen. Nitrogen won the Wonder again by 17 lengths under Jose Ortiz, and just came back and missed in the Belmont Oaks by a nose. So those are your three top contenders, and then the question is, can you make a case for anybody else that's a price? Because those are all going to be short.
I could not. And I thought the way the prices were in this race, I actually thought Good Cheer, offered a little value. I haven't looked real hard at the races around it, but to me, I think there's a real good chance she bounces back in this race. And I am certainly going to be looking if I can find some races around it, maybe pick 4 or 5 to see if I could use her as a single, because I just think if she bounces back, I think she's when you see a horse that's run one race where they run all turf races and then they run one good race like Nitrogen, I don't see how you can make her in your mind 9-5 and make Good Cheer 8-5. And I liked Lucara last time. She had a perfect pace scenario. I had reasons that why she had run poorly in the race before. I think it goes back the other way to on Saturday, and I think Good Cheer is going to be pretty tough to beat, Jay.
Look, I mean, you can't argue with her record, and if the gate incident was what did it, I mean, that can take any horse out of the race, especially a 3-year-old filly. They're very skittish compared to, say, an older male horse, and something like that can really take them out of the game. So, yeah, if that was what did it, there's no reason why not. Good Cheer can't bounce back to what she was before. The work tab's been solid, so we'll see what Good Cheer can do.
And one other
But
thing, Jay, real quickly, when you see
yeah.
a horse that has a good race in the slop, just look and see if that horse was loose in that race. And by that I mean if you were last of 5 and you never had slop in your face, you didn't have the dirt thrown in your face. A lot of times it looks like those horses will run well. And last time she didn't break good, and then all of a sudden she was getting dirt in her face. And maybe that was the difference for her. because the other race, she was so clear, even she broke last and she just went circled the field, faster horse. And usually in a slop race, what you see at the end of the race is the horse in the winner's circle's got a clear face. They were either on the lead or they were way behind or they were tracking outside where they didn't get the mud in their face. And I'm thinking maybe that was the case for Good Cheer. So I think she bounces back. Jay, I'm not scooping the world in here because I think this horse is going to be less than even money.
Yeah, so do I. And just becomes a question of is the horse I can't see making a win bet on Good Cheer at 4 to 5.
No,
But if you're looking at her as a single in your exotics, then I can see the case for that.
just depends on what the other races are. And again, I just hadn't spent enough time on those races. Jay, I do want to take a look at this Woodbine race. It's the EP Taylor. And again, very, very important race last year as Moira won this race last year. And there were some contenders that came out of this race. It's just a field of 7. The question is, again, there's another short price favorite in a lot of these big races. It's very, very difficult to always make a stand against these big favorites. And we seem to be picking out some races here because we're looking at these grade ones and we're really trying to figure out what's going on in the Breeders' Cup. In my eyes, that's what I'm doing. That's why I want to look at these races anyway. But the question is, Jay, and I'm going to throw it to you because I think that there might be a horse that you like in here a little bit. And anyway, can they beat She Feels Pretty? Field of 7 here, going 1.25 miles in the EP Taylor.
Well, there's at least one I think has the chance to do, and that's number 3, Diamond Rain, because you know I'm going to be all over a Charles Appleby William Buick horse. And this filly comes in from overseas. She's a Group 3 winner over in England and has been racing in England throughout her career against some of the best younger competition out there. And yeah, I think this one has been facing, better company than She Feels Pretty. Not that She Feels Pretty has been facing slouches. I mean, the horses on the New York circuit, on the NYRA circuit, and on the Kentucky circuit are the best in the country. So She Feels Pretty has been facing quality fields as well. But yeah, I absolutely think Diamond Rain can give her a race. And I like the fact that she's coming right off the plane, no local works,
Mm.
bringing that good form with her. And Charlie Appleby's been phenomenal in graded stakes, 30% wins. So yeah, at 6 to 1, I'm definitely giving Diamond Rain a long look.
Yeah, I want to give you kudos for that comment. You brought this up 7, 8 years that you and I have been doing this kind of thing together about coming right off the plane. And that's exactly what this horse does. And if you look at Appleby's numbers, remember when he had the bunch of horses over here and he did it for a year, and all of a sudden he was beatable. Jay, he wasn't winning as many races. And I actually think that if you look at his overall percentages in here, it's now does not have a positive ROI, which is ridiculous because when you were really pointing this out, first time I saw it pointed out, it was incredible how much of an ROI he had. So that one year that he was over here where he really lowered his percentages and his horses weren't winning. And he said, you know what? That's what great trainers do. That's not the way I do it. Back home, let's get them home. When we want to win a race, we're going to come over. And those horses, to me, are much more dangerous. Now, I'm going to tell you one other thing about Diamond Rain. I did watch the tape on her. Takes her a long time to get going. I will tell you that. So if you're, yeah, there's a long stretch at Woodbine. There's a lot of room in the stretch for that. So I think that's okay. But I didn't love what I saw from this horse on tape. Doesn't mean it's not a play. But I will say that if you don't see a lot of pace in this race or speed sticking a little bit, that's going to be the difficult feat for this horse because this horse really took a lot of pushing from Buick in both races to get going, especially that race at Haydock Park, because I watched that race really, really carefully. I don't know that track super well. There's a lot of tracks over there that I know a little bit better than that. But that being said, she really doesn't have much speed early. And it took her a lot of pushing to get going in that race at 1.5 miles. This race is only 1.25 miles, but she's still a price. And boy, are those the right connections. I'm certainly not talking anybody off of a price with those. And I really didn't see much else. Did you see anybody else that you thought was a danger, Jay, or do you think it's those two?
Uh, as far as on the win end, no, but there's one horse I like in the exotics, and that's number 2, Literate. And if you look at Literate, Literate just turn the tables on Caitlin. How do you say that name? Caitlin, her greatness. And Caitlin, her greatness, if you look back at her past performances, look back at the Queen Elizabeth Cup at Keeneland, she held She Feels Pretty every step until caving at the end, still finishing a good third in a 10-horse field in one of the toughest races of the year. So
Mm.
Caitlin, her greatness, at 8 to 1 certainly figures in the money, but Literate is an even better play at 20 to 1. And in a short field, I'm looking for what might be a really home run play in an exotic. So I will take a look at Literate, not on top, but underneath. I think she's got a chance to hit the board at a big price.
Jay, have you thought about how you might put that together? If you could, you tell the fans how you would put that together? You're going to key the three, is that correct?
I will key the three, and I will key the three with number two, Literate, and with number five, Caitlin, her greatness. And I'll put those together. We'll put them both on top and the bottom. And then the question is, realistically, can She Feels Pretty finish off the board? No, unless there's something wrong, She Feels Pretty is not going to finish off the board. But if Diamond Rain wins and one of those two horses finishes second or third, even if She Feels Pretty also finishes second or third, you'll have a price in there. And with a 6 to 1 on top and, maybe a 20 to 1 in the second or third slot, even if She Feels Pretty cracks that trifecta, you'll still make a little money.
Mm-hmm.
So I'll just use She Feels Pretty in the all spot, and hopefully she's not all in today or tomorrow on Saturday.
All right, I'm going to pass on the exotics myself, but I tell you what, I do agree with you that Diamond Rain could be the value of this, just simply because of this trainer and how good he is, and this horse coming off the boat. And I'll take a glance if she's 5 or 6 to 1. I could be interested here in a win bet. All right, Jay, we have looked at the Alabama and we've looked at the Woodbine race. I think we're ready to go to Del Mar.
All right, the big one.
All right, boy, oh boy, I've got some stories about this Del Mar Oaks. Man, oh man, when I was in my late 20s, there was a horse named Tranquility Lake that had all kinds of trouble in the San Clemente, which is the prep for this race. And I really didn't think she could lose. And she went off at a giant price, and she did run second. I did hit the exotics in the race, but I've just always remembered this being a really, really special race. And Tranquility Lake really turned out to be somebody that was one of the first years that they ran the Breeders' Cup Filly Mare Turf, and she ended up getting into that race as a 4-year-old. When she ran in this race, she was a 3-year-old. So I've got some real history with this race on and on for years. I've always looked at this race as a race that price horses have a chance. And I don't know that we're going to find a big price in here. We'll see. We got a couple of tough favorites to beat in here, but we're going to take it race by race. And Jay, you want to take it? You want to start out with the one horse Slick, or you want to start with the two Take a Breath?
Um, let's see. Okay, I'm happy to take Slick, Steve.
Go
And
for it.
Slick is from Phil D'Amato. He's been using Mirko de Muro on a few of his mounts, and Mirko's up to 7%, so he's slowly building his book.
He's on fire.
Yeah, but keep in mind he's not in a lot of barns, and these new jocks take a while. Sometimes they'll just catch fire immediately, like an Antonio Frizou, and sometimes it's a slow haul, and it looks like that's the way it is with Mirko. So as far as Slick goes, Slick had two races over this course. The maiden race was okay, kind of plotted in and finished fourth behind Resolve, and then. In the Jimmy Durante, that was kind of an ambitious spot for a maiden. Finished 4 lengths back behind Will then in a good field. So yeah, I mean that wasn't a bad effort considering she was still a maiden at that point. Broke her maiden over at Santa Anita, not here, and then closed nicely in an optional claimer to finish behind Velocity. Umberto Rispoli goes elsewhere, and Slick, at best, could clunk up for a minor award. I can't see Slick on the win end.
All right. Well, I tell you what, there's a couple things I like about Slick. One is it's this horse on the bottom side has Dubowie in the breeding, and I happen to think that that's the best sire in the world for class horses. For two, this is a 3-year-old making her second start as a 3-year-old that drew the far outside at Del Mar and was extremely wide and ran a much better race than that race looks as a 3-year-old. The races as a 2-year-old, I'm not that concerned with. And now you get a second time D'Amato. I give this horse a chance. I give this horse a chance to win the race, actually. So I like Slick a little bit more perhaps than you do. Take a breath. I will take over. I'll tell you what, this horse, I did watch tapes on this horse. I watched both of the last two races. Very slow early. And I'll tell you what I did not like about her at all. I didn't like the fact that she was on the wrong lead. There's going to be some questions for some people that why does Barrios end up on this horse? Because he has been riding the favorite in here. I am not worried about the answer to that question. That might be something that you might be a little bit more concerned about. I'm not making that a positive that he's riding this horse, although I love this guy as a jockey, especially on this course. I did not like either one of her races on tape. No early speed. I'm going to pass on Take a Breath.
Well, I actually think Barrios getting aboard is a positive sign, and it's for Mark Glatt. And Mark Glatt, as we all know, has been one of the best and most consistent trainers on this circuit for quite a while now. And he's again having a fine meet. He's having a 20% meet. So I can certainly see Hector Barrios riding for Glatt. And I think this horse will be ready. Just one race, one workout off the plane is almost as good as just one is fine with me. Just a little blowout, get it going. The horses she's been facing have not been the best class in the world over there. And sometimes you can look at these handicap type races and you can say they're better than our allowance races, and they are. But this is a grade one.
I don't
So,
believe that. I
uh,
think sometimes they are and sometimes they aren't, Jay. I think you got to watch these races individually. If you claim individually that the races are better over there, no matter what they are, without even looking at them, especially when it's at Sandown Park, which is like a Bay Meadows, I just disagree with that. But that being said, this is a certainly with Barrios riding, this is a possible contender. But nevertheless, because I watched the tape, I just didn't like the tape.
well, it depends on what you're comparing it to. And, certainly these handicap type races are probably not even in a league with our grade threes. And what makes me judge this one as not the likely winner here as I look at the BRIS average class figures. And normally, when you have a good European contender in the average class and current class columns on the BRIS statistics, these foreign horses generally are right up there. But Take a Breath is number 8 in the average class and number 4 in the current class. So Briss isn't evaluating those races very highly. And despite Barrios' presence, just like with Slick, I think this one's a minor award at best.
Okay,
And
velocity.
we'll move on to Velocity. This is the horse that beat Slick last time and beat Slick over Del Mar, so has a win over the course. And this one actually was, I would say, a realistic contender because it was up close in a graded race in the Senorita at Santa Anita
Mhm.
and was pressing the pace most of the way, closed some ground late, just come within 1.5 lengths of Jungle Peace. And not very far behind Amarita, another good horse. So I think Velocity actually has a realistic chance to be in the money, and I could see Velocity even surprising a few people and cracking the exacta. The win end, it's still a little bit of a reach for me, but I'm not throwing Velocity out. If I decide to expand and play a lot on my ticket, in an exotic like a pick three or pick four, I'll have Velocity in a few of the win bets.
And the velocity is the kind of horse that I like to play against a little bit because this horse had the absolute perfect trip. Might have it again today. When I say the perfect trip, when you get a perfect turf trip at Del Mar, it's when you're right behind the speed and you're on the rail. Two horses are in front of you, and those two horses are duking it out. In this case, they weren't really going too fast. 49 and change is not super slow for Del Mar. They don't go that fast coming out of that chute. They will go faster in the mile races. So this horse to me got a perfect trip, and I thought Slick was better than her. I thought Slick will do better on the stretch out. That was a blanket finish, and again, for her to get the perfect trip in here, I would be surprised. So I'm going to pass on that horse and on a horse that I think might get bet. The next horse is Resolve, and the big positive with Resolve is I think Kent DeSormo is really focused on the mounts that he's had. He's only had 5 mounts. I think he rides this turf horse incredibly well. And on any big bomber that he's on, I would look twice at those horses because he knows how to cut the corners here, which a lot of these guys don't know how to do. And the rails are down, so I think that's a factor. Unfortunately for me, I've never seen this horse do anything that makes me feel like this horse can be a contender in this race other than Kent. So I'm going to pass on Resolve.
He put in a good race, closing nicely on Will then and the Jimmy Durante. I've talked about that race already. And since then, really hasn't done very much. A couple of decent seconds in, optional claimers, but in stakes competition, in that Turfway Park Stakes, which of course was on Tapeta, maybe she just didn't like it, but finished up the track. Umberto Rispoli abandons, and so will I.
All right.
And let's move
Um,
on. Let's move
yeah,
on. One of the ones I really like in here, and that's number five, Lush Lips. Lush Lips has won three of the last five and was second the other two. Has been facing some really tough competition right there to Nitrogen, who we just talked about in the
of
Alabama.
course.
So just decided, not try. Why keep knocking on the door? We're not going to get past Nitrogen. Decided to try, the luck out here. And Steve, I don't know if we agree so much on turf. I've always felt that, in general, it's a generality, but the East Coast horses are a little better class than ours out here. If you've got a grade two winning horse back in New York, and this one didn't win the Edgewood, but was very competitive, that they're competitive in a grade one out here. They're about a half a notch better, in my opinion. So I do think for this, Lush Lips really is a class edge here. Maybe not the best in class. We'll look at the whole field, but right up there in tops in terms of class. Love that Tyler Gaffleone, who's back to full health and riding up a storm back east, takes the mound and ships out here for Brandon Walsh. Flavian Pratt is busy riding in the EP Taylor and the other big races at Woodbine, so Tyler takes advantage. Yeah, I think Lush Lips is a very solid contender in here off that win in the Tepin.
Well, Jay, we do it a different way, but this horse is really solid in here. I mean, there's a lot of horses in this race that have no chance. This is definitely not one of them. She's never run a bad race. She's a big contender in here, maybe the most likely winner in this race because we're going to get to the favorite who's got a terrible post and is going to really have to deal with the trip. So, Lush Lips, maybe the most likely winner in the race. Her races on tape are very, very good. And then when she's gotten beat, it's Nitrogen again, that looks like those two horses are just really the class and the best of what we see on the East Coast. She's gonna be tough to beat in here for sure. I'll go with Edge of Mail. To me, she got a good setup last time. It was a maiden race. She was favored in that race, got a nice trip in that race, and did come running. To me, she's going to have to move up a little bit. Wasn't terrible on tape. And again, these 3-year-olds can get better in a hurry. That's a great barn for Sue's been riding well. But I'm going to pass as far as the top 3 goes. If I was going a little bit deeper, she might be something I'd be interested on putting in on the bottom. But for me, I'm going to pass on Edge of Mail.
I mean, the one redeeming
Now,
note here, the one redeeming note here is Jeff Mullins gets 28% wins going from maiden to winners. So that's the one optimistic note, and the win came at Del Mar. So yeah, I can't throw her out of all the betting pools, but on the win end, it would be a shocker. I think you'll not only get the 15 to 1 on this, you'll probably go well over 20.
yeah, you're going to get a good price for sure. All right. How about the next horse?
Okay, we're going to talk about Will Then. Now, Will Then was the winner of that Jimmy Durante race I've already referenced a couple of times, and then came back and won the China Doll at Santa Anita. The Edgewood seemed a little over her skis to Nitrogen and Lost Lips, and then gave Thought Process a good race. And I'd have to say, compared to Thought Process, because the difference in post and saving the ground, you can make a case that Will Then will finish above Thought Process because thought process is buried so far out there. I think Will Then's a big contender to hit the board, but with Juan Hernandez aboard, you probably won't get the 6 to 1, probably more like 4 to 1. And realistically, even though this one can and figures in the money, I'll try to beat Will Then because I just don't think the price is going to be there.
Yeah, she's one of the horses I would definitely go against because I'll tell you what, she had a perfect trip last time out. And thought process, if you watch the tape, thought process did not have quite a perfect trip. Had a good trip, but not perfect. This horse had a perfect trip. I thought thought process was about 5 lengths better than her. Only beat her by 2 1/4, 2 1/2. To me, it was double that. And going the extra distance is not going to help Well Then on tape. I do not like Well Then. She's a pass for me. I'll
Okay.
pick it up with Firenze Fire, who came out of the same race, and she was very similar to me. There was no way. Kasulu was clearly second best in there, and I thought this horse is going to really have to step it up. Second time out, maybe the extra distance will help her a little bit, but she wasn't finishing. Both the 7 and 8 were flat, and I don't think the extra distance is going to help her. I'm passing on Firenze Flavor.
Yeah, I think the redeeming qualities are that was off a break. It wasn't a long break, but it was a 2 month break. Sometimes, fillies will need a little bit of time there. I do like that 49 work on the turf on this turf course. That bullet work is inspiring and did close some nice ground. Again, gets a slightly better post than thought process, but not that much. Drayden Van Dyke is an unimpressive turf rider. He's a decent dirt rider, but on turf, he's a 5% rider. The barn does not have particularly great results in graded stakes. Yeah, pass for me.
All right, why don't we pick it up with Kasulu?
I will. Okay, Kasulu with Kazushi Kimura aboard. And Kasulu gave thought process a bit of a scare. Was closing nicely at the end, but just was never going to get there. Ran out of ground. We'll get more ground today. So if the problem was that Kasulu needed more ground, she'll finally get the trip that maybe she's been looking for. Maybe she's been calling out for this all this time. I like the fact that some of these mile races. Like for instance, in the Blue Northern, she made the lead and then was still pulling away at a mile and needed more ground last time around. So I think a mile and eighth could fit right in up her alley. It's a Baffert horse at 10-1 because Baffert gets no respect on the turf from the line maker. He's not that bad a turf trainer. Okay, it's not the same as with his dirt horses, obviously, but Bob's okay on the turf. At 10-1, Kasalu or Kasalu, however you want to say it, is a value to me and will definitely be on my tickets and will be on a few of the win tickets too, I'll tell you.
I thought she really didn't want to go that far last time. I think she's better going shorter. I think a mile might be absolutely pushing it. So I think the 1.1 miles is going to be tough. I don't like the way Kazushi Kimura rides this turf course. Just boy, not really. He's been very inconsistent. He had a couple horses that he kept with cover, and they ran good. But for the most part, he likes to pop out. And on the gallop out, this horse had absolutely nothing, and thought process was pulling away from her. And I don't think thought process is going to win this race. So I definitely don't think Asulu is going to win. But I think she's a really, really nice filly. And keep your eyes on her because down the road, with Baffert training, maybe she cuts back and maybe she'll be able to do something in the future. Again, a horse that I think can run. Thought process was the best 2-year-old filly, Jay, that since we started running 2-year-olds about 8 years ago, she had run the fastest 2 races ever run at Del Mar. So she was the best horse ever going into the Breeders' Cup. And she had to pull out a horse named Lake Victoria that if you watch Lake Victoria on tape, she looked like a 4-year-old. I don't know if she could have beaten the older horses last year because they run a longer distance, but she unfortunately hooked one of the best horses that we've seen in a long time. She's come out, she's run 2 great races. She showed to me that she could take the extra distance. She was much the best against all those horses that she faced last time. I just don't love the post. They're going to have to cross and clear. I don't know that Rispoli's a better rider here. It just feels to me like she's going to fire and get run down in here. And I'm going to put her in my top 3, but I really think that the likely winner is going to either be a huge bomb or be the shipper.
Yeah, I mean, she would be my pick if she wasn't in post 10. She loves the course. She's 3 for 4. And obviously, Phil D'Amato has a long history of success over this course and has won this meet a few times. I want to give you my scoop on the rider switch here. And basically, what happened was Barrios was the regular rider, and he doesn't ride for Phil D'Amato that often. He's not the first or second call rider for Phil. And then Hector ran in the Breeders' Cup and got his clock cleaned by Lake Victoria, no question. And I just don't think Phil was happy with the ride, so he gave the mount to Rispoli. And then Barrios got the mount back last time because Rispoli's been a little busy with a horse called Journalism,
Mm.
and he's been riding Journalism out of town. I can't remember if that was the exact date of an out of town race, but I know he's been riding out of town and for Phil a few times. So at this point, basically, this was, in my opinion, Rispoli's horse, and now he gets it back, and that's why Barrios is off. So that's my own take on why the rider switch happened. So that's no negative on Barrios abandoning the horse. I don't think Barrios jumped off the horse. I think he was pushed.
Mhm.
Thought process obviously figures in the top three somewhere, but he might not get the or she might not get the top three because of that post. I could see her finishing off the board, and at 8-5, I've got to try to beat her from post 10.
Yeah, I can't argue with that. And then she's one heck of a nice filly. She's done nothing wrong, and it's second time fill at the meet. And I'm telling you, folks, right now, D'Amato's at 12%. You wait and see. He's going to be real close to 20 by the end of the meet. Every single year is same way. Everybody's all, oh, Phil's cold, 7 for 60. He's not winning. All of them come back second time, and they all run really, really well. And he will start winning races, and then you're going to go, oh, he won 2 today. He won 3 today. And the next thing you know, he'll be back close to 20. Miss Fancy comes out of that same thought process race. She did run second in that honeymoon race back at a mile and an eighth, which is the longer distance. I love the way Ayuso's riding. I didn't like the fact that I was really watching that San Clemente closely to just see who was coming on over this racetrack. And she's got a good back second over here, but I just don't see it from that outside post. Again, I've been really watching Ayuso carefully because I think he's one of the better riders that is still riding bombs. But I just think Miss Fancy's hung out and she's going to be in a tough spot here.
Steve, actually, that's miso fancy, and now I'm kind of hungry for some miso soup after the show. But yeah, I think from what I can see, unless she just really didn't like the Del Mar course, and I think that's a possibility because she ran so well in the honeymoon. But yeah, just never got involved. Past one horse in the stretch, and sure, maybe needed the race. Sure, maybe a mile and an eighth would help because the honeymoon race was a mile and an eighth. I expect her to do better. But especially from post 11, I just don't see this one having a chance. This one's going to be off my ticket, even though at 30 to 1, if you wanted to play a superfecta ticket and you wanted to play around with making me so fancy your superfecta key underneath at 30 to 1, it'd be a cheap enough ticket for 10 cents, but that's as far as I'll go. I think even fourth is probably ambitious.
Yeah, it's just going to be tough for this horse, I think. And I just didn't like the honeymoon as a race. I just thought it was a slow race. They didn't run fast early. They didn't run fast middle. They didn't run fast late. And I don't know how. I don't know how coming out of that race that this horse is going to improve out of the San Clemente and beat Lush Lips and Thought Process. It just looks like a task that's too tough. So I'm passing on her.
Well, I guess it's that time, Steve. You want me to just, in the interest of time, give you my three and then you give me yours?
Sure.
All right. My third pick is number three, Velocity. Nice win over Slick. And Steve, I do take your point that this one did have a great trip, and Slick might not have been drawn very well out of post 12, and Slick certainly can improve. But Ricardo Gonzalez, after a few disappointing meets, is having a fine meet. 16% on turf, even though turf has not been his niche. He has picked it up on turf this meet, and he's impressed me. He's got 19% win ratio. He's riding really well. This horse is in fine form. Decent work on August 10th on this course. Velocity is my third horse. My second horse, despite an outside post, is number nine, Casalou. Really impressed with Casalou in the San Clemente. Pressed the pace every step, was still gaining on thought process in the stretch. And I think if, Casalou had a few more steps, might have caught her. Now, I can say that, I listen to your point on that, and you may have a point, because sometimes horses do have an optimal distance where they're pushing past, at a certain point, and it looks like they want to stretch out, but really that shorter distance is the most they want to go. And if you're right about that, Steve, Casalou will probably not be in the money. I just think, to me, she looks like she can handle a little more, and I think this is going to be a decent mile, a decent distance for her, and we'll see. I do like the fact that she's inside thought process. I think Umberto is going to have to make a move early to overcome that post, and I do think that's going to take some starch out of the horse in the stretch. And finally, my number one pick, and it wasn't close for me, is Lush Lips. Lush Lips, that 95 wrist figure is a good 5, 6, 7 points better than everybody else in here. Nitrogen is an actual standout on class, and I think Nitrogen would lay waste to this field. And this filly was half a length off Nitrogen, coming off fine form in the Teppan. It's very, very hard, and especially with that 5 post compared to thought process as 10 post, very, very hard for me to look past Lush Lips.
Boy. Well, we're not going to agree on the top horse because I'm just going to change my top horse. How about that? Because we agreed last week and we didn't get a price. So I'm just going to go with a price for the heck of it. I don't know how you can put thought process out. She's been the best filly on this course, except for that Breeders' Cup race. I got to put her third, thought process, but she's not going to be a price. I'm putting Lush Lips second, and I'm my mom would use, I'm not even going to use that word because I'm going to embarrass myself, but I'm switching just for the heck of it, Jay, for no particular reason.
All
Uh,
right, you be that way, Steve. You're
Lush,
obstinate.
yeah, Lush Lips is going to be super tough in here. She looks like the horse to beat. And so because of that, now I'm taking a shot with my one horse Slick. What I like about Slick is there's nobody else going to bet this horse. You're going to get 20, 25 to 1. She's going to take back and make a run. If those other horses can go a little wide, the pace can be a little fast. Someone's going to sneak up the inside. DeMuro has not been as impressive as I thought he was. The first couple rides I liked, thought he really had his head up as you know what today on a ride. I didn't like it at all on a horse that I thought was a stick out in the pick three, and I singled, and he just why he forked to the inside there, I have no idea. But he took the horse about 25 lengths off the piece, which I didn't mind when I saw the fractions because they went 48 seconds for a mile and 3/8, which is very, very fast, extremely fast. And the horse really was in gear and looked like he was going to have a shot. And then all of a sudden, he looks like he got a swing outside, especially with the rails way out. And what did he do? He went inside. I don't think the horse had it, I'll be honest with you, but I couldn't believe that he went to the inside. I thought that was just a terrible move. And I lost a little bit of respect there. But so for me, just because I'm putting Slick up top, Lush Lips going to be super, super tough, and thought process going to be my third horse.
All right. Well, Steve, if you're right, the viewers are going to get paid. So it's definitely worth looking at that one at 15 to 1. And I will
The
say,
old spiteful play. That is just horrible, huh? That's horrible.
Steve, but I'll say this, both Slick and Velocity, if because I'm not going to single Lush Lips in any of the exotics, it's too big and tough a race. I'm going to use a few horses, and both Slick and Velocity, the one that beats Slick, will both be on my ticket. They're both
Well, there you
valued at
go.
15 to 1.
Now you're talking. Now you're talking. And if if we get a race where the favorites don't fire, now you can get a nice payout. All right, folks, we've been talking to you about this company for a while here. Um, Looking to bring the thrill of Vegas right to your party? Saddle up for the ultimate casino night with Casino House Parties. We've got it all: poker, blackjack, roulette, craps, and most of all, a lot of fun. It really is a fun party, whether it's a birthday party, corporate event, wedding, fundraiser. Casino House Parties can really take care of you, folks. I'm going to give you a phone number here: 8883 got poker. You can go to casinohouseparties.com, just like it sounds, casinohouseparties.com. If you use the promo code saddle up 50, they'll give you $50 off your first booking. Don't gamble on a boring night, bet on a good time with Casino House Parties. We bring Las Vegas to you. And thanks to those people for hanging out with us for the entire meet. We appreciate Casino House Parties, Jay.
Yeah, hopefully some of the casinos house party, easy for me to say, house parties, hosts and players, maybe are checking out our show and joining our audience and maybe getting more involved in horse racing as well. It's still the sport of kings, and we're very happy to have Casino House Parties as a sponsor.
Yes, we are. Jay, I'm gonna turn this over to you, and then I'm gonna comment on it afterward. You wanted to talk a little bit about structuring a horizontal ticket, and I think it's extremely important because I really think it's still something that's left for people who want to outplay other people, and basically that's what we're doing. We're all trying to get better in this game. I'm going to really listen to what you have to say, but we're talking about horizontal betting, and I want to hear what you have to say.
All right, Steve. I'm going to say something that might be just a little controversial here. I try to spend as little time handicapping as I can. And you might say, isn't that kind of the key to the game? Yeah, it's one of the keys to the game. But in my opinion, I try to make the handicapping part as automatic as possible. I have certain angles, certain patterns that I look for, and I always go to those without having to spend a lot of time just trying to measure things and figure things out. Sometimes, of course, in the important races, it's a must to look at the tape. Steve, I know you look at the tape a lot, and I look at the tape probably not as much as you, but when it's important, and especially when there's trouble, there's no substitute for that. But essentially, what I try to do, yeah, what my focus is really on money management. And I always thought that the right balance is spending if you've got 100% of time to play this game. I think it should be something like 40% handicapping and 60% money management, structuring your ticket, deciding where you're going to bet and how you're going to bet. Those who follow my tickets on racingjason.com will notice that often I'll put together three or four pick four or pick three tickets and not just one. And what you want to do is you want to weigh them and emphasize them. First of all, I've got to have keys. And what I'm looking for with my handicapping methodology, I'm trying to find one race where I can either find a single or narrow it down to two. I've got to have at least one key because otherwise the ticket becomes unaffordable if you're using, four or five horses in each race. Just multiply that by four or five, and it really becomes unplayable. And it especially becomes unplayable when you look at some of the paltry prices we've seen lately. Sometimes it's easy enough in this game to make a play and win the bet and still lose money on the bet. We've all done it, and lately we've done it more than we care to. So I'm looking for at least one race that I can narrow down with my methodology where I'm confident and solid on one or two horses. And then I've got to have at least one leg where I'm going to find a price. And today I was looking at a race at Thistledown, and it was a couple of favorites. I had a couple of singles, and then it was a 12 horse field that I thought there were a few had a chance. And then a 40 to 1 shot was motoring down the lane, but just couldn't quite catch the 3 to 1 shot. I still made money on the bet, but the difference there would have been $150 versus $950. So you've got to have one race at least that you can leverage, and you can say, okay, there's a legitimate chance that a big price can come in, and almost did. And I'll just mention that there was one race last week at Del Mar, and I looked at that first race and I said, there's several horses that can win. This favorite is not any kind of a single at all. So, that pick five last week at Del Mar paid pretty well. So,
Yes, you had $1,000 pick there. That was last Saturday, Jay. You came out, and the funny thing is in the very first leg, you had that nice 20 to 1 bomber. And I'll tell you what, boy, that takes out a lot of people. So really well played there on a 20 to 1 shot in the first race out of Del Mar. And again, that was a favorite that you thought was vulnerable. So did you spread a little bit in there? Or can you
I
tell me
did.
what you used in that race?
I did. I used four of the six horses because I knew the
Okay.
favorite wasn't all that. So that's what you're looking for. You need at least one race that's solid that you can key around, and you need at least one, hopefully two, in the sequence that have beatable favorites and prices that can come in. And what I will say is the pick five pays exponentially better than the pick four in almost every case. So what I generally do is handicap it as a pick four first, and then I have my pick four ticket, and then I'll just say, okay, can I expand this to that fifth race, which is either it'll generally be the first race in the sequence. So normally it's like the first race out of five or the fifth race out of 10. Let's say I've got my pick four down to $50. Then can I play the pick five and still play it for about $100? Can I, get, two horses in that leg that I think have a chance? Because if I do, then I do think that pick five is worth a shot, even if those two horses in the last leg aren't a sure thing. If I've got a good faith belief that they've got a shot, it's worth playing over the pick four because it's going to play so much more.
Hmm. Well, one thing's for sure, every bet you make, you got to look at as a long run bet. I tell you, there was a couple things that you said there that I really think are great points to our fans. Most people are spending 15 hours handicapping and 15 minutes betting. maybe even more of a ratio than that. You're throwing it together at the last second. You got to take your time and say, what is it that I really like? I spend a lot of time handicapping, but I also spend a lot of time putting my bets together. And I just think that that's extremely important. I love the ratio that you're doing. I think it's outstanding. I think it's unusual. And I think it's very, very important that people really start to think more and write down more about what your bets are. One thing I'll also say is in a pick five sequence, you've got to take your ego out of play, because there's always going to be a race in a 5 race sequence, almost always, that just looks impossible. Make that race your easy race, because if the hardest race, I can't handicap this race. Everything I do doesn't work. It's not a maiden race with a Baffert in it. That's the last race you want to do that with. When you get to a race where there's maiden claimers, they're all coming to the track for the first time, say down here at Del Mar, and the clocker doesn't like the works on anybody. He's got some 3 to 5 shot in there, whatever. Those are the races that you just go, you know what? There's a race where I can take a shot in. I'm going to hit all. Now I've got this race covered. Go to the other races. So you got to find a way to take your ego out of the equation when you're playing these multiple race sequences. And again, you have got to find singles. They don't have to be 8-to-1 shots. It's great to have an 8-to-1 single. They're hard to have win. They're hard to have win, especially the tracks that we're playing right now. They're being very, very heavily scrutinized at Del Mar and at Saratoga. And if you've got an 8-to-1 that you single and the horse goes off at 8-to-5, was that what you really were intending to do? Because obviously, if you're singling an 8-to-1 that's going to go off at 8-to-1, you're really trying to knock it out of the park. So I would say, really, again, I think Jay's got great points there. Taking your time to put these tickets together and make your worst race your best race, but really, really take your time, because everybody's taking their time on handicapping. But I don't think, Jay, that they're taking their time with the betting as much as they're taking their time with the handicap. And it's almost like everything is done. You put it all together and then you throw the bet in. It just doesn't make any sense. I think what you said makes perfect sense. And I am, for a change, Jay, I'm in 100% agreement with you.
Thanks, Steve. One more thing I want to add with the shorter prices of the pick fours. I mean, when we used to have full fields all the time, they would always play boxcars. But now, look for boxcars, you're looking at a pick five. So with the pick fours, when I'm talking about money management, okay, you're going to have, a couple of, hopefully you'll have at least one leg in there where you've narrowed it down to one or two and it's solid. I mean, they're going to win 90% of the time if your methodology is solid and correct. But then look at some of the other races. If you just play, say, 3 times 2 times 4 times 8 horses and just keep playing it one time every time, even if you win most of those bets because your handicapping is good, you're going to lose money over the long haul. You're going to have a number of bets, those pick fours, where they come in and they pay less than you put into it, even if you figured it out right. So with the money management part, it's really important. And then after you've got your singles, look at least one more leg and say, this is a horse that I can key on more. This one I can put in another ticket 2 times, 3 times, keyed to this one horse in another leg, and just really stand on that. And sometimes it's a favorite, sometimes it's a long shot. If it's a favorite, it's almost a necessity if you want to play it, because if you've got 2 horses that win and then you've got a 5-to-2 shot that looks really solid, so you've got your short priced key horse, and then you've got another horse that figures, to be like very low odds. It's like, what's the rest of it going to pay? So don't just play one ticket. Play a few tickets, and when I can, when I see an angle, I try to put those out on my cards on racingjason.com. Where to play it for 50 cents, where to play it for $1, where to play it for $2. But it's impossible to do that in every race. Sometimes you have to figure that out after you've done your handicapping. That's why I say you need to spend more time with money management than you do with handicapping, because that's how you're going to get paid.
One more addition to that, Jay. The pick three, the late pick three, it's a $3 play. I think you'll end up with a similar bet overall to the 50-cent pick five. If you've got a single in there, that bet has really been paying well at Del Mar. There's a low takeout. It's the same takeout that's on the early pick five. And that's one of the reasons that early pick five always pays so good. So if you're looking for another bet, I'm in agreement with you on that pick five, but that pick three, the last one, because it's $3, especially if you have a single. If you've got a single in there, then you can, again, it's hard to talk to everybody because not everybody has the same bankroll. Some people you said $100 and some people win. I've never bet $100 on a pick five in my life, and that's fine. But everybody has a very, very different bankroll. I know guys that bet $500 pick fives all the time. And I know a lot of guys that bet $20 pick fives all the time. We all have a different bankroll. That's real hard to talk about. The concentrating on the betting is unbelievable. That's great. That's great stuff. But figuring out exactly how everybody's playing, because everybody has a different bankroll, that's very tough. I mean, we would almost need, to me, we would need information to know how much people are betting on some of these things because it's just not going to be quite the same for everybody. But those are some really great ideas, Jay. We want to get to some handicapping, and we're going to go chronologically this time because I think you have a race that's on Saturday. Is that correct, Jay?
Yeah, all my races are generally on Saturday. So if you've got a Friday race, Steve, you might want to take that first.
Yeah, I'm going to take it away here. I'm going to go first. I'm going to go to this Mile and Three Eighths, this CTT Stakes. That's a really nice race at a Mile and Three Eighths. They're going to run it tomorrow at 5:30, and we've got a field of 11. The rail is at 24 feet in here. And what does that mean going this far? That means those outside horses are actually going to have a little better shot than they would at the rail at zero. If you can get to the inside with the rail at zero, you really have an advantage. With the rail at 24, not so much. I think the two path could be just fine in here. I like a horse named Sunset Glory in this race. Jay, this horse is 5-1 in the morning line, ran an absolutely bang up race in this race last year. Had a nice prep beforehand that was where the horse was a winner and then came back and won the race. Off the layoff this year in the June 6 race, this horse ran a great race. And then last time, I did not think this horse had the best of trips, was wide throughout. I hate that wide trip where you just can't move over. Grand Slam Smiles, a horse that's really on the upswing in a restricted race in the Oceanitas. But I think this one will be set to go now. Third start off a layoff, 5-1 morning line. Miss Astor does look like the horse for her to beat. I'm going to very simply play a win bet on this 4-horse Sunset Glory and an exacta box with the 3 Miss Astor. It's race 6 at Del Mar tomorrow. It's the 4 Sunset Glory.
Yeah, Steve, I think that's solid. I do think Miss Astor is the one to beat. And if you just play it straight like that, that's a good way to play it. That's a way to get paid and not just waste your money on a lot of extraneous horses that you don't think have a chance.
All right. What about you, Jay? You got a couple plays for us, or you just have the one on Saturday?
I got a couple for you on Saturday, Steve. And we're going to look at, yeah, we're obviously not going to look at the Alabama, but we're going to look at a race that I think has a little more potential than that. We'll look at race 5. It's an optional claimer, a 1.375 on the turf at Saratoga. Your big favorite here is Fuerte Ventura, number 4, getting blinkers today. And Fuerte Ventura comes off a solid second at this level for Rob Atras, who's one of the more talented trainers back there. And this one was very, very close to another horse, Zevriev. I'm probably pronouncing that a little bit off, but it's close enough. You'll see the one I mean. And that one, those two finished within a half a length of each other. I'm looking for somebody that, in my opinion, outclasses both of them. Because when you can throw a blanket over 2 horses, I usually try to beat them both. And that's number 3, Outsource. Outsource played just won a straight allowance, just flew late to nail him by a nose, getting that Trevor Denman steam train call to get up. And then last time out, they tried to mistake the Rick Violet Stakes for 150,000 here at Saratoga, and kind of hung back late. Made a little bit of move in the stretch, and I really like the switch here. Thomas Morley, who is also known as Maggie Wolfendale's husband, saddles up Dylan Davis here as Velasquez, I think, is riding on that EP Taylor card up at Woodbine and has some mounts. And I really like the way Dylan Davis has really come to hand. He's a younger, I think, more aggressive rider at this stage. Than Johnny V is. And I think that's kind of what this one needs to kind of get him in the race a little bit sooner. So liking number 3 Outsource at a surprising 8-1. I handicapped this one before the morning line came out, and I thought, outsource would be 5-2, 7-2, something like that. So pleasant surprise, 8-1, and I think worth every penny of that. And maybe you'll get six, and even at six, it's a value.
All right, how are we playing any exotics, or are we just making a straight bet here?
We'll play some exotic, Steve. We'll use the two I mentioned, the favorite, Forte and Zverev, and we'll also use Ambition. And Ambition certainly has shown that this one has a chance at the board. So this will be a little bit of an illustration of what I was saying as far as like weighing the bets a little bit. So I'm going to play a dollar trifecta, number three outsource, with those three horses, 246 with 246. And then I'm going to play a 50 cent, my regular key, which I do when I'm keying three horses. So it's a 50-cent trifecta, three with 246 with all, three with all with 246, 246 with three with all, and 246, 246 with three, my little saver. So if those ones that I like best, the 246 come in, I won't just have them one time, I'll have them three times. And that's what I try to do. I try to weigh those so that you have multiple chances to win and can cash multiple tickets. And hopefully that's what happens in race five at Saratoga.
All right, Jay. And then you said, do you have a Del Mar race as well for us?
I do. We're going to look at the last race here, the get out race, as they call it. And in that race, let's go to that last race here. All right. And we're going to try to knock off the favorite because, hey, that's what we do here, Steve. And that's what we normally try to do. But to my surprise, I handicapped this one before. Again, the odds came out. Now I see that even at 7-2, my horse, the Misen Queen, is the favorite here. So we're not going to try to beat the favorite. Don't listen to me. The Misen Queen comes from back east, what from over across the pond. And what I like about the Misen Queen, this one has been again generally facing, I think, a little tougher company, especially to a maiden race. This one's been facing winners. But more importantly, this one has not only been facing winners, it's been facing males. In three of the five races, this one has faced male competitors and against males, except for the race at Tipperary, didn't do very well. But males are absolutely tougher company than this, and they've been huge fields, 13, 14, 15 horse fields. So this one comes here with that record in mind. And the reason I like the Misen Queen the most is this one was closing in the last race, making up ground, and just missed by half a length. Steve, if you look at the entire field here, this is a bunch of horses, and they've not been closing very much ground in the stretch. Almost none of them have made up any significant ground. And you want to say that, well, okay, maybe some of them are sprinting, will be spread out, but no. In this particular case, every one of these was already, except for number five, Pristine, who you can probably make a case for here. Number five, Pristine, is the only one that's stretching out from 6.5 furlongs to a mile. Sweet Gem is, but that was off a dirt race, and Sweet Gem has had her chance at going a route, and that wasn't a pretty picture. So I'll use Pristine on my ticket, but not the others. The rest of them, I'm not going to wait around to see when they finally decide to, close ground. I think a lot of these fillies, the only way they're going to get their diploma is against claimers. I think most of them are overmatched against maidens, and I think the Misen Queen is the right fit here. So number three, the Misen Queen. Plus, oh, and I did want to mention Dan Blacker, who's known as Christine Olivares' better half. This one with Blacker, he's not a huge name here. Veteran racegoers know him, but a lot of people that are more casual players and know Bob Baffert and Phil D'Amato and the bigger names might not be as familiar with Dan. He's a very capable trainer. 30% wins first time in his barn, and he manages to persuade Hector Berrios to take them out. So I think this filly must have something going for her. Number three, the Misen Queen.
All right, how are we going to play this one, Jay?
All right, we're going to play a trifecta here, and we're going to use three horses here. We're going to use, and what I'm looking for, you'll notice if you looked at the bris figures, there are three horses, three fillies, Toes, Miss Artois, and Four Arrogate, that all had a matching 83 bris figure. They finished in a blanket finish. but I'm going to pick Miss Artois out of that bunch because she had a little trouble at the start and the others had clean trips. I'm also going to use number 10, Auntie, who's kind of disappointing me at 5-1. I thought she had a very bad trip last time and finished way up the track. So I thought off of the strength of that, she would be a bigger price than she is. Nevertheless, I think she's going to improve off of that, and sometimes you have to take what you get. And then we'll use the one I mentioned, number 5, Pristine. This is the only one stretching out for a first time, was closing a bit, and I think Pristine could be a factor in the exotic. So we'll play it like so, Steve. Let me get to my page here. All right, we're going to play a 3 with, and I'm adding Miss Pristine on now. She is the 5. Okay, so we're going to play a 3 with 5, 7, 10 with all, a 3 with all with 5, 7, 10, and a 5, 7, 10 with 3 with all. The Meissen Queen might be worth a win bet if she holds that 7-2 price. If she's bet down to 2-1, I would just play the trifecta.
All right, Jay. That wraps it up for Del Mar on the Saturday card. That's the last race of the card. All right. Anything else that comes to mind, Jay?
Yeah, I just want to mention a couple of things. Of course, you can always get our selections at racingjason.com. $25 for the full card and $15 for the best bets, which is our best 4 bets of the card. Steve, what do you have going this weekend?
Well, I'll be doing the same thing. I'll be looking at Saratoga, and I don't think I've put a play at Monmouth since the first week. Unfortunately, that's probably been the biggest hit we've had all meet, but I haven't seen much there. So we'll take a look at Saratoga and Del Mar for sure. And again, I will glance at Monmouth, see if I can find anything there. And but we'll have the full card up at Del Mar, and then the best plays from those other tracks on the Del Mar full card line, and we'll have our best bets available from Del Mar as well for both Saturday and Sunday and
Absolutely.
tomorrow.
Absolutely, and I will have my full card for Del Mar on Saturday and Sunday, and my full Saratoga card on Saturday. And I think the Saratoga card has some places where you can make a few bucks. There are a few prices on the Saratoga card, so look at that one closely. And I'll also mention my show next week. I'll be hosting next week's show, which features the Travers card, and it's a huge card. I don't know how great a Travers race we're going to have. We're still waiting for that last minute decision whether journalism goes there or stays here for the Pacific Classic, which Steve will be hosting the following week. That'll be an interesting decision. I do think the Horse Racing Nation people that put out a lot of the stakes tracker things and probables and possibles are pretty convinced that journalism is gonna stay home and not face sovereignty. And let's face it, sovereignty looks like a monster, and you've really got to ship a long distance there. This gives journalism a race over the track that's going to host the Breeders' Cup. So I do think that's more likely, but you never know. But yeah, I will definitely pick out a feature race to go over and dive deeply into that will not be right now a 5 or 6 horse Travers, but we'll talk about that race certainly on the card, just see if there's anybody we can think of that makes the final cut there that has a shot to knock off sovereignty. Right now, that's not been a very easy thing to do. I'll also mention that, yeah, so we'll be doing another, it's one of those big cards with a slew of grade ones. So, we'll talk about at least one more of those and dive more deeply into it. And I will be talking about one bonus race that week as well. Just like it's the big, multi-race grade one card at Saratoga. It's also the multi-grade group one card at York in England. And the feature race there is the Juddmonte International, and the Juddmonte International features the feature marquee horse there is a horse called Delacroix. And Delacroix just won the Eclipse, the Grade One Eclipse, one of the biggest races in Europe, and beat Ombudsman and ruling court in that. Did very well. Steve, you'll be impressed by the breeding of Delacroix. This is a son of Dubai, and Tepin, one of Jason Levine's favorite mares of all time. And Jason won a
Wow, Dubowie's the sire or Dubai?
Dubowie's the sire and Tepin's the dam. So
Wow, that
this
is
one,
that is that
this
is
one's bred in
amazing.
the purple. I know Jason's
Whew.
got some interest in that.
Yeah, that's incredible breeding. Teppan
Yeah,
was unbelievable. For those of you who don't remember, she won the Breeders' Cup Mile and she won it for fun. I mean, she got a great trip, but she accelerated away from the field. It looked like an allowance race because she got geared down and she still won by a couple lengths.
yeah.
Pretty hard to do in a Breeders' Cup Mile when you got all those monsters behind you. But she was amazing. And Dubowie as a sire, just look and see what this sire has done in all the big races on turf in America the last 3 or 4 years. It's been incredible. So very, very well bred horse there for
Yeah.
sure.
Yeah, so I'm hoping that there's a field worthy of giving a trifecta out. I had high hopes for the King George and Queen Elizabeth, and then it was cut down to 5 horses. So that really disappointed me. I kind of dispensed with that one in a minute, but hopefully the Juddmonte will have a big field and will be worthy of more discussion. So that's what's going on next week, Steve, and that's all I've got.
All right, everybody. Hey, you guys have a great week. Enjoy yourselves. Remember, it's 4 o'clock post at Del Mar today, so it's a long day if you're going to play both tracks. But pretty decent card. I'm hoping the weather is better at Saratoga than what it was today. I didn't have any inclination that it was going to be a sloppy track today, and it was. But I did look at the weather. The weather looks good for tomorrow. So hopefully you folks will have a good day playing Saratoga and Del Mar tomorrow. Good luck, and Jay and I will be back next week.
Enjoy, make some money out there.